Hey guys, and hello. Welcome to another edition of Train Talk from Milepost 141. This is SoundTraxx Soundbites podcast coming to you live from 141.
Well, it's not live.
Not live, but videotaped.
Yeah.
Man, you ruined my mojo here.
It's a podcast. That's my job.
Videotaped from 141 Burnett Drive. If many of you guys are also familiar, 141 is also our DCC manufacturer ID. So there's a lot of tie-ins to that 141 address.
Yeah, so if you ever need to identify who made a decoder, CV8 will tell you that. Our specific code is 141.
That is correct.
So if CV8 on your decoder reads 141, you're using our decoder.
So with that, we'll go ahead and I guess just jump right into it since
Why not?
Since we kind of
since I was rudely interrupted by the safety valve on my large Prairie here.
I was going to say I was ruined by the giant safety valve that's sitting right here in my mojo in my opening. I had this whole speech in my mind planned out.
Well, too bad. This is a podcast. Get used to it.
So, well, anyway, as many of you guys know, this is a podcast where we talk model trains and kind of talk about some new projects, things like that we're working on. And we've got some new projects here to share with us.
Well, in my case, it's a somewhat older project.
Yeah, you've had that around for a little bit. You've been operating on my layout for a little while. So let's go ahead and I'll let you start with that one.
Alrighty.
And let's untangle the cord here so you can show it off.
Certainly.
And then we're going to get the camera 2 over here. And we're going to have it, I'm going to do my best camera work that you've ever seen.
I hope that is sarcasm.
We'll find out, won't we?
I suppose so. So this is actually, as I mentioned, a model I've had for a long time. This is my Great Western Large Prairie made by Dapol. I bought this, 2 years ago? Something like that. It's actually, I already did most of the work on it. I just brought it in today because I'm still moving, so I don't have anything actually new to show off. So I figured I'd pull this guy out and talk about it for a little bit, because I did actually do a few interesting things on this guy. So with the Dapol Large Prairies, what they've actually done is there's a Next 18 socket in the smoke box right up here. I don't know if you can get a good angle on that.
Oh.
So right in here is actually where the decoder sits, as does the speaker. And it's on a neat little pull-out tray, which you can actually access just by popping the, if I can get my nail under there, popping the smoke box door off. So you can see everything lives in there. You can't really see that much from that angle. But the decoder and the speaker, and I've actually fitted a Iowa Scaled Engineering energy storage device to it. Little dual cap just to help, because it's obviously a small wheelbase. It only has 6 wheels to pick up with, the 6 drivers.
Oh, you don't pick up anything from the pilot and trailing truck?
No, they're just electrically neutral.
Okay.
But what I did that's actually really interesting on this one is the way Dapol has their Next 18 motherboard set up. There's a couple of LEDs in the firebox of this model. I don't know if we'll be able to pick them up on camera.
Ghost train. You don't have any figures in there.
Shush. I know. I need to get some. No, it's not picking it up on camera. Oh well. But there's a couple LEDs in there. And the way Dapol has them set up is they're just sort of doing this. They're not actually flickering.
Okay.
So I modified their motherboard to bring them under the control of the decoder. And with that, I then used the decoder to set them up to actually do the firebox flicker effect. So that's pretty neat, although you can't obviously see them on camera, unfortunately.
We saw them in our mind.
Let's go with that. Sure. I may try and grab some B-roll later.
Okay.
With the lights off.
Yeah, I was just saying we can probably include some B-roll in the dark.
But this locomotive, because it's using the TSU N18, I don't have access to the Eco UK sounds, which means I don't have the actual GWR whistle.
Okay.
But what I've done is actually the PRR Banshee is fairly close.
Okay.
So I'm actually using the PRR Banshee whistle here.
Okay. And to the uninitiated, it would sound close enough for government.
It's a skosh deeper than the GWR whistle would be.
Okay.
But it is quite close. They're both single chimes. They both are relatively high pitch.
Gotcha.
And as you can see, as with all my models, I have it set up for with a lot of momentum and braking and all of that.
Yeah, you definitely want to do that.
Yeah.
Helps smooth out the operations a little bit more.
Yeah, makes it so I'm not taking 5 minutes to do all my switching on your tiny layout.
Well, here's a question for you. I know in the UK they use a vacuum system instead of an air. So on the Tsunami2, you do have the vacuum pump sound.
That is actually an option on Tsunami2 is vacuum brakes.
Okay, so how does that work? How does the vacuum pump work on this? Is it separately controlled, or is it run off of like a steam pump, or how is it?
I was sort of going into it a little bit on the previous episode with my standard 2, but effectively there is a line running between all the cars. You know, I'm just going to couple these two up for demonstration purposes.
Oh, you're gonna lose value in my. You've reduced the value of my car now.
Too bad.
Because I've attached it to that unclean UK stuff.
We clean our locomotives better than the U.S. ever did. Have you seen the prep procedure for one of these?
Yeah, well.
One time I actually stood. If you've ever been to the Swanage Railway in the UK, a little bit down the road from their depot, there's this nice little almost park where you can overlook their engine maintenance facility.
Okay.
And I actually stood out there one morning when I was over there, and I watched them. They had people with rags, and they were wiping down the entire engine.
Ah, pretty nice.
Yeah.
But I mean, I kind of get the feel of how it works in the train. Yeah. I was talking about on the engine itself.
Yeah. So with vacuum brakes, you obviously have the line, but instead of increasing air pressure to release the brakes, you actually create a vacuum to release it. So when there's a vacuum, the brakes are released, and then if the line breaks for any reason, the vacuum, the air escapes into the line, thus reducing the vacuum and applying the brakes.
Okay.
And what they have is they have two ejectors. There's the small ejector and the large ejector.
Okay.
The large ejector is primarily only used when stopped.
Okay.
If they need to maintain, or when the locomotive is not moving in order to release the brakes.
Okay.
And I don't recall the exact details, but I think it's integrated into the exhaust stack somehow.
The vacuum.
The large ejector. So it functions almost, from what I understand it, and I don't understand everything about it. From what I understand, it functions somewhat similar to a blower.
Okay.
And in order to.
So the vacuum pump pulls the air and then ejects it out through the stack.
Pretty much.
Is that okay?
That's the large ejector.
Okay. So go ahead.
No, what was your question?
Well, I'm getting at how does the vacuum pump work on the locomotive itself? Is it a steam-driven pump, kind of like our air compressor?
It's steam-driven in that its functions more similar to the blower.
Okay.
So it's a constant on when you open the large ejector. Mm-hmm. You're basically using steam to create a vacuum. Through draft almost.
So it's not like a traditional air pump like we see here, where instead of pumping air into, it's pumping air out of.
Correct.
Okay, because that's kind of the impression I had in my mind anyway, that it was drawing air out of the line using the pump, kind of like you would a vacuum cleaner.
There is no pump effectively.
Okay.
That's why I think it's much more similar to the blower system.
Got it. Okay.
In how it creates, so all similar to how the blower system creates the draft, it uses that same type of system to create the vacuum.
Got it. Okay.
But it only uses that when it's standing still.
Okay.
Once you're moving, you can rely on the small ejector.
Okay.
And there's, I don't know the exact details, but there's something on one of the axles, and it's able to use that. If you actually listen closely, on one of the chuffs, you can hear there's almost an extra release right there.
Okay. Okay, that was kind of what I was getting at, was if there was something that we would hear from a operational standpoint, because we have it as a selectable sound in our decoder, but I've never used it in anything because, of course, I model the good old Stars and Stripes models, big trains.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, I've never had the need to do a vacuum pump. And I remember hearing it in the initial testing and everything to make sure the sound was there, but I've never known exactly how it works. I kind of assumed it was kind of like the air compressor on a steam engine, just instead of putting air in, it was pumping air out.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of why I was asking the question, was I've never actually put that much energy into looking into it.
So there's the extra sort of additional release on that. It's always one of the 4 chuffs.
Okay.
So it's not every chuff, but basically, let's say it's top dead center, wherever it's positioned. So every time it would hit top dead center, that would go.
Okay.
And obviously that I just had independent brakes going, but if I turn on the train brake, there are also sounds associated with that.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot different than what we normally hear when you release the brakes with using the regular air.
Correct, because the air is feeding into the line rather than being expelled from the line.
So it's more of a suck sound than a blow.
I don't even know what our rating is, but I'm pretty sure that just changed it.
I was just talking about your steam engine. Where are you going with that?
Known you too long.
I'm just an innocent bystander.
Are you sure about that? No. I don't believe you for 1 second.
No, you shouldn't. Don't ever trust when it comes to food, trust the fat guy, but otherwise he's up to something.
Probably.
So, okay. Well, is there anything else? Let me disconnect this.
Yeah.
And is there any other interesting things about your engine there, or is that pretty much covered it?
I mean, it
does have a great detailed interior. Go ahead and lift that off again.
Sure.
Let's show what the interior of this. I'm at the cab.
Yeah.
You didn't have to take it off the track, but look at that cab interior. They've actually done a really nice job. I love the brass painting on the valves and gear and levers
all
and
the gauges have actual lettering on them.
Yeah. Pretty impressive.
Actual markings.
Yeah. Do they work?
No.
Slackers.
You'll have to take your complaints up with Dapol on that one.
Yeah, well. But no, that's a nice looking model.
Yeah.
And I know you've run it on my layout several times.
Oh yeah.
Come over and operate, so.
This is my go-to locomotive because it's probably the single most reliable locomotive I have. It has been everywhere. It's been to Athabasca. It's been to your place. It's even a couple times. It's been on the local NMRA group modular layout.
Okay. Cool. Well, that's a sharp-looking engine.
Yeah.
You know, even though it's European, I guess I'll give it a thumbs up. But you got to weather it a little bit.
No, they clean their engines every day.
Well, I know.
Didn't you just hear me?
I did, but what my point is the inside of your stack is perfectly clean.
True.
And I guarantee you they're not wiping the inside of the stack. So, and the soot would build up enough that there would be a little bit, just a little too clean.
Yeah. I may end up doing that someday, but
We'll have to teach you how to airbrush.
I know how to airbrush. I just don't have one with me. That one's still in Illinois.
Oh, gotcha. Alrighty. Well, I guess we'll go ahead and quickly show off what I've got, because we spend a lot of time on that. But what I've got here, let's see. Oh, you took my address off.
Oh, I didn't hit the recall, did I?
No. So this is a Missouri Pacific. It's one of the cars that was built for them by the ICC, the International Car Company. And this is an offset Wide Vision. Now, when the ICC was building cabooses for people, or for the railroads, they had various different configurations they could go with. Mm-hmm. And of course, the Missouri Pacific chose the less common version.
Yeah.
You know, where the cupola's on the offset side. So this is actually a Shapeways kit.
Really?
Yeah. So first off, let's do a moment of silence for Shapeways. But I had bought this kit, and it's what it is you buy the ends, the sides, the roof panels, and the cupola, and it's designed to fit on an Atlas car, an Atlas caboose frame. And so I had bought this a while back, and I'm thinking probably, heck, before the world ended, quite frankly. It's how long that thing's been sitting in my shelves. Anyway, so somewhere around March, I got the idea that, you know what, I'm going to build this thing. I've had it for all this time. I already did the hard part. I spent the money. But when I opened the kit, my cupola had like a caved-in roof. So I ordered a new cupola, and to help offset the costs, I went ahead and shipping cost, of course. Yeah. I went ahead and bought an interior kit for this car, and then I bought a 69 Dodge Challenger. If any of you guys, let me know in the comments if you know what that's in reference to. But anyway, so I bought all this stuff up and started putting it together, and I found out the kit was a lot easier to put together than I anticipated.
Okay.
It was an injected plastic, and then I glued the sides together, and they pretty much just went together. I had the basic body of the car built in an evening. Okay. And I left the roof off for a little while, painted up the interior, painted up with like a green color. And painted the inside walls, and then painted the outside. Now, the outside paint is one of those interesting things that I actually bought like 6 different colors of red till I found the one I wanted, and even then I mixed. And the reason for that is because the Missouri Pacific would buy their cars in a traditional red.
Yeah.
And they were that bright caboose red. That was the color. But there was something about, and I don't remember exactly, it was having to do with either the chemical they were using to clean, or it was sun fade or something about that, but it turned the paint orange. And I've heard it was the chemical that they were cleaning the cars with. And so over the time, the cabooses on the Missouri Pacific would turn more of a reddish orange. And being the fact that I didn't want this one to look like it was fresh out of the shop, I went and searched for a whole bunch of different colors. And I ended up using a mix of True Color Red with some CN Orange. And so that's why it looks like there's a little bit of an orange tint to it.
Yeah.
So that was a really, and I love the color. I mean, the color turned out great. So I'm real happy with that. But the end railings and everything on the end are just off the Atlas kit. And the underframe and everything is actually just the Atlas caboose. It's their traditional Wide Vision. But what I did was, and I'm going to grab this other camera here to kind of show a little bit closer, but I had actually gone in and cut out the steps and used etched metal to do the step wells. So that is in here. And the other thing I did was I put the lights on the end. Those lights are not traditionally on this particular one. So I found some scrap tubing, and there was another piece of something that I hope I don't find a need for it later that looked like a perfect size for the light. So I mounted them on here, and so on the back here, this is the back of the car. We'll go ahead and turn on the light here. So the white light is actually for shoving moves. It actually acts as like a headlight.
Okay.
And the Missouri Pacific had them on both sides. And of course, there's the whistle, the air whistle, the conductor. Of the SoundCar, because of course I had to put a SoundCar in it.
Of course.
But that was how they were using it for shoving platforms. So if they were going for a long distance, they would turn on the headlights, so that way they were following the rules, having the light on there. The one next to it is a flashing rear end device, and so that would be the red marker for the tail end of the car. And so, like I said, I scratch built those out of some tubing and some pieces I found on the on my workbench. And like I said, I hope I don't find what they were used for originally. The other thing I did was on the bottom side here, I added the extra details, the piping and everything.
Okay.
And what I used for the trucks were the Athearn roller bearing trucks, and they have the electrical pickup on them that they have for their cabooses. So I've got the rolling caboose trucks on these, so that as it rolls down the track, you get that that animated roller bearing action. And that's one of the things I've actually been in the process of converting a lot of my locomotives, or I'm sorry, not locomotives. What am I talking about? My rolling stock. I've been converting everything to a semi-scale wheel with the rotating axle caps. Just because I feel like, first of all, I've got a fairly small layout. I mean, I don't have that much rolling stock on there, so it's easy to convert all of that. But the other thing is, and I showed this to you the other day, we did watched some of the Missouri Pacific training videos from their Missouri Pacific DVD set that you can get at the MPHS. And I would watch, one of the things I love watching about it, and I was telling you that when we were watching it at the time, is looking at the cars, because the date on that video was 1977, which is the year before I modeled.
Yeah, so we, at one point we were discussing auto racks and whether or not they would be, closed-sided with a roof, or whether they'd be open-sided, or whether it's closed-sided without a roof, or...
Yep. So it actually shows us a lot of what it is.
Yeah.
And anyway, so I've noticed that in that video, there's still a lot of regular friction-bearing trucks as opposed to everything roller-bearing. So I'm converting it, over time. But anyway, so I've been having fun with this, and if any of you guys are at the, I don't remember exactly when this will air, so hopefully if you're at Greeley at our Colorado RPM meet, you'll be able to see this. I also did have it at St. Louis with me as well. So we'll take it and show it off, and I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out, but now I want to buy another one, but with Shapeways' demise, I don't know how to get the car sides again, because the creator, I guess, the guy who had I assume guy, I guess it should be the person who had the files that were being sold through Shapeways. I don't have any idea how to get a hold of them, because I had put a couple of emails saying, hey, can you let me know how to do this, or where I can get this now that Shapeways is gone, and then now the forum's gone. So I don't know that I'll ever get an answer. Yeah. So
if you can at least find the files, I'm still looking for a replacement resin printer for my old one that broke.
I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah.
The other thing you'll notice here, and really quickly I want to finish up on this, is that I've actually been playing around with oils more for weathering now, rather than doing just an airbrush. And so this has a mix of all of it. It has some oils on it, so there's some faded white on there, there's some orange to try to help bring out that orange tint. Because on the logos themselves, you can kind of see that the logo itself actually has some orange and fade on it. So it looks like the logo is actually fading as well. So I'm actually really happy with the way this turned out. And then I've got my stick scale head couplers and my magnetic air hoses on the end with the rubber air hoses. So real happy with this. Like I said, now I want about 3 or 4 more of them. So,
well, you're gonna find time to do 3 or 4 more.
Well, I gotta find the bodies first.
Yeah, true.
That's the biggest thing. I mean, now I had bought 4 of the Atlas kits because I could kit bash them.
Yeah.
Years and years ago, way back when I was about your age, 12. Shush. I had actually cut up an Athearn model. And the Athearn model had some crude details on it based on the time. And so with today with the Atlas one had some better details on the side of the car, so I was wanting to redo and do another one. So I had bought 4 or 5 of those Atlas cabooses to cut up and do in various ways, and they've been sitting on the shelf. And then I bought this, and it's been sitting on the shelf. So it's just finding time. But
the perennial problem, sitting on the shelf, waiting to be built.
But I just sat down and did this, and with the interior, it'll be, I can show you. This just comes right off. There's my figure. So I've got a guy in there with the interior. So you've got to see, you can see the interior that I bought, and it's got the lockers on there, the steps to get up there, and the seats. So of course I had to put a person in there.
Yeah.
So like I said, I'm real happy with the way.
So where's the SoundCar and speaker located then?
The speaker's actually located right underneath there. You can kind of look in there and see it in the front part of the caboose right there. And then the SoundCar is actually located underneath the roof right here, so I can still access it with my...
With the magnetic
with
wand.
my with the intelligent consisting wand. So anyway, so there's modeling with George and Norman. Seems like it took up a little bit longer than I had initially planned, but that's okay.
That means we have a lot to talk about. That's a good thing after the dearth of modeling stuff we've been working on the past couple weeks.
Yeah, we've had a lot of stuff going on. I'm actually finishing up on these fueling racks that I was sharing with about last time. I've got a couple of projects off my workbench, and now I'm working on those. So hopefully I'll get those built up here soon. We'll bring them in and show you the finished product.
Okay.
So with that, let's move on to our next topic. And we're going to talk about audio tools.
Yeah.
Now, as many of you guys, longtime users of SoundTraxx, may or may not know, depending on how much you've got dived into the settings, is that we've got a lot of tools built into the decoder that allow you to modify the sounds.
Yeah.
Now, one of the ways I like to talk about, people will come up and they'll say, well, how come you only have one, and I'm going to make up a thing here, 645 turbo?
Yeah.
And the answer is, well, because you've got a lot of audio tools built into the decoder so that you can make them sound different.
Yeah.
There's a perception out there that every locomotive sounds different. Well, I'll argue against that a little bit because a lot of times we may hear the same locomotive in different places and it'll sound a little different. Excuse me.
So depending on environmental factors, the humidity, the temperature, what sort of terrain is surrounding you, it may sound different.
Right. So you can even take the same locomotive and mic it up in 3 different locations and get 3 different recordings of the same engine. And then I come into the studio and we can manipulate it using some audio tools and then sell it to you as 3 different ones. Or we have the other, which is more of an experienced view. I have a very good friend of mine who used to work in Kansas City at Argentine Yard for the Santa Fe. He's told me, he says, George, I've tried. A GP7 sounds like a GP7, sounds like a GP7. They all sound the same. So depending on your perspective, this gives you the ability to do this.
Yeah.
Now, we've got a lot of stuff built into it, including things like our prime mover pitch shift. You've got the 7-band equalizer. You have the reverb and echo.
I was actually about to talk about the reverb because I've had a couple people call up asking, hey, I want to really model this locomotive when it's like really on its last legs, and I really want to make that prime mover sound unhealthy, and I always tell them, reverb.
Yep.
Add some reverb to the prime mover.
Yep, it does, and it really does change the tone quite a bit. So we've actually shot a webinar recently. We had done some webinars on our YouTube
by the time
channel.
this is up, it should be posted.
Yeah,
so
it will be. But we've shot webinars over the past where we have done things like what is DCC, how does it work, and we show you the mystical thing going on behind the scenes in the cabling here and on the signal on the rail. We've done one where we teach you how to solder. Some successful soldering classes and tips that you can make successful soldering with it, so that way you can be successful every time with your installations. And a lot of other topics, including one of my favorite ones to refer people to is our consisting video. Webinar 14, because it shows you the ins and outs of how to build your locomotive and your train so that you can run multiple units more realistically together, rather than just simply pushing add this and add that. and the trailing units never get any of the function commands and all the great features that we built into the decoder. So this is just another addition to the webinar series.
Yeah, but this time it's going to be covering all these audio tools for the reverb mixer, the equalizer, and the high pass filter as well is a big one.
High pass filter is in there. We talk about that. And we'll give you demos and everything. So be sure to check out that on our YouTube channel. Go to SoundTraxx.com. You can click on the YouTube icon, or you can go to YouTube.com and search SoundTraxx webinar, and you'll see the list of all the different webinars that we've done over the past. Because we'll dive a lot deeper into what we're talking about today. And it's just another way that we give you a tool that you can actually
correct. So that begs the question then: how have you set that up on this model?
I haven't.
Oh, you haven't done that yet?
I haven't done anything. It's literally stock out of the box, other than I selected the air whistle that matched the MP, put an address on it, and selected the lights.
Right, because this is still fairly new.
But this is fairly new. Like I've spent literally 5 minutes doing it and doing the last minute programming for this. But now all of my other locomotives, every one of those before it really goes into operations, I do that as part of my initial setup. I'll go in and set up the equalizer, add reverb and echo to the air whistle, or to the, you got me saying air whistle now, to the air horns and things like that. So I definitely do add that in there, and I talk about that in our webinar class. So again, be sure to check that out. And guys, don't be afraid to try this stuff out. Experiment with it. If you don't like it, you can always undo what you did by setting the settings. For example, when we talk about the equalizer, you have 0, which is off, or you have several presets, and then a value of 7 turns on the user adjustable.
Yeah, and that's actually what I do on this one. So how do you normally set your equalizer then?
I usually just do it by ear. So I'll have my prime mover running, and then I will turn on user adjustable, and then I'll boost and cut each frequency until it sounds good to me. Then I'll blow the horn just as a listen in and hear it. So it's really a trial and error type thing, and that way also no two locomotives sound the same because the speakers may be mounted differently. For example, the speaker here is essentially fully enclosed. I mean, quite frankly, it's a little bit muffled because there aren't any open windows or anything like that the sound would be emanating out of. But at the same time, it still sounds good. I don't, so I don't necessarily need to do it.
Okay.
But the good news is, and you can do as much or as little as you like with the audio tools and adjustments because
I think you typically set a much more aggressive equalizer curve than I do.
Yep. I usually set my low mid-range, which I'm trying to remember there's 200 hertz usually goes up to about 160, 170, and then that's 250 hertz, I'm sorry. And then the 500 hertz usually goes up around 200 because it helps fool our ears into hearing more of the low frequencies. Okay. But anyway, I don't want to go too much into detail here because we want you to watch that webinar.
Well, the webinar tells you how to use the tools. What I'm trying to get you to go into is how do you use the tools on your personal models? Yeah,
and like I said, it's trial and error and listening to it. So
because I actually take a very different approach. I usually will set just a nominal frequency curve. Actually, from the way you're looking at it, it would be like that. And then I actually spend most of my time on the high pass filter.
Yeah,
getting that right.
The high pass filter is one of those that really does help because if you're trying to pump a frequency that the speaker physically can't reproduce, then you can get distortion.
Yeah, you can get distortion. So if I actually... There's very little distortion there because I made sure to match that high pass filter to the speaker. And that's, again, a trial and error. You're going to want... There's no nominal high pass filter value that you can use. Because each speaker is going to be different. I mean, you can have a specific high-pass filter value you use per speaker. So if you're using the same speaker for everything, then you can use the same high-pass filter. But if you're using different speakers, I mean, this is a very different speaker than what I normally use.
Yeah. So be sure to check that out. And I know we've kind of run a little bit longer than I normally wanted to, so we'll go ahead and wrap this up.
What was I saying last episode about podcast time growth?
Well, we want to try to keep it short so that, we
We're
don't take
trying
too
and
much.
we're failing.
Well, we're still, based on what I'm seeing, we're still close to within time of what I was wanting to do. So, guys, we want to appreciate all of you for watching and listening wherever you are in the world. And if you have any thoughts or suggestions, shoot us an email, support@SoundTraxx.com. And if you have any questions about our products, I mean, we are here to help you. We want to make sure that you enjoy using our products.
Yeah.
And so if you get stuck or get hung up on anything,
If there's anything specific you want to know how we do, certainly reach out. We'd be happy to talk about it.
Yep. So with that, I think we'll wrap up this particular episode of Train Talk from Milepost 141. This is the SoundTraxx Soundbites podcast coming to you from 141 Burnett Drive, recorded and reposted.
Yep.
Anyway,
To use your term, videotaped.
videotaped. There we
Even
go.
though the fact that we are definitely not recording this on tape, and tape hasn't been a thing for God knows how many years now.
Showing my age.
Well, so am I. I had a VHS player at home.
Nah, you did not.
No, I did. I still
right.
have a bunch of VHS tapes back in Illinois somewhere.
Is that where you have your Finding Nemo? Anyway.
You joke, but probably.
All right, guys.
We never throw anything out.
Yeah, there you go. All right, guys. Well, that's all for now. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks for watching.
Bye.